So, as I've said time and time again, the same reason why I love agencies is probably the same reason why most people never succeed in starting theirs, scaling them, or building them up. You see, I recently was just doing a call with a one-to-one student of mine, and we were talking about how there's really a lot of people out there who are thinking of starting an agency, trying to start an agency, or struggling or even failing to start an agency. And that's because running an agency is like playing chess. And most people are thinking of like move or step number 4, and they can't see which steps to take and in which order, even though they know everything that they need to do. And that's because an agency is really one of the only businesses that has everything: hiring, operations, sales, service delivery, client communication, etc., where most businesses like an e-com brand really only focus on just the client acquisition side. They don't have like ongoing communication with clients. And so in this video, I'm going to kind of break down why an agency actually has 3 phases in its life. And depending on which stage you're in, you really need to allocate your time differently to kind of get the best results and really scale it up. And really, as I said, it's not just this is how you need to allocate your time. It depends on where you're at. So if you do want, the first link in the description, you can book a free one-on-one call with me, and we'll figure out where you are and kind of what the next steps make sense for you. With that being said, let's get into it. Right, so we're going to be talking about time allocation for starting an agency. And an agency really exists in 3 separate phases. You have the beginning phase, which is fundamentals. This is when you have 0 clients, 0 MRR, you're basically like nothing. Then we basically have launch phase. This is when you are trying to get your first client. And then we have the scale phase. And the scale phase is really when you are ratcheting things up and you're starting to bring on a team and fulfill operations, and you're starting to look to outsource things. And if you have a look at this, you can see that the way you allocate your time, ladies and gents, is really different depending on where you are. And that's by design. And then at the end, I'm going to go through the 3 things that I focus on in a day. Because when I start my day, and my agency, Centrosite, for those of you who don't know, we do about 80K a month in revenue. We help e-com businesses and info businesses scale through Facebook ads. And we have a lot of competition, and we continue to grow. And I basically start my day just by looking at 3 things and deciding where to start. But let's get into it. So first, let's look at the fundamentals. This is step 1. This is where everything begins. And really, your time only needs to be split in 2 parts. The first is mindset, and the other is service market fit. Now, if you've read a lot of books, most people in the entrepreneur world probably have. You've probably heard of like the Lean Startup. There's a bunch of other books, and they talk about product market fit. And so yes, I took product market fit and just flipped it on its head and called it service market fit, but we're going to roll with it. The first thing I want to say is that everything else is absolutely 0. Like, I see so many people starting an agency. They've got 0 clients, 0 MRR, 0 anything, but they are building a team. They are hiring people. They are doing SOPs. They're doing all of this stuff. And honestly, the beginning part is figuring out service market fit, which is really just 2 questions, which is very simply, what are you selling and to who are you selling it? That's basically it. And you can change, you can try many different services, different niches. That's a completely separate video. But really, it's just doing research into like what people want. And so many people ask me, how do I book more meetings? One of the ideas or the little hidden gems that I gave away recently is, if you're trying to sell to business owners in the e-com space, they probably run on Shopify. Most Shopify people are using an app like Loox or something like that for reviews. There are Facebook groups for every single one of these apps. If you just join the group, you will find all the e-com owners there. And if you just message them, you have a list of potential clients. Like, it's not rocket science. You don't need to do cold email outreach and all these things. And that basically just comes from the fact that I research my market. Who are they? What do they do? And what can I sell them? For my agency, that's Facebook ads. If you're starting another agency, I actually recommend that you kind of go into the lead generation side. It's a bit easier to get results. But anyways, that is it. And then 50% on mindset, because you cannot go from like a broke kid in your basement playing video games all day to like running an agency and making millions. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. There's a complete mindset shift that needs to happen. So that's the fundamentals. Once you've kind of got your first client, or you're potentially trying to get your first client, you know what you're going to sell and to who, we then go into the launch phase. And this is probably where you are now. You're just kind of getting started. And over here, we shift gears a bit. 50% of our time now goes into prospecting, 25% into sales calls, and by sales calls I mean taking sales calls, but also practicing sales calls. I did a recent video on my channel where I actually did a demo sales call with someone, and I took them through the phases, and highly recommend you watch that. But you have to be practicing sales calls. Sales is something you honestly just get good at by practicing it. And then making content. This is high quality posts you can make on Facebook. These are blog articles you can put on your website for ads and for SEO and things like that. At this point, there's no reason why you cannot make high quality content and consistent content, because you have no clients. You have like nothing else to do but make content and do prospecting. And there's so many different ways of doing that. And majority of it is just prospecting and getting feedback from your market. Like if you're messaging 100 people and all of them are telling you to get lost, this is probably not the right market for you, right? So use that feedback, use an iterative approach, and kind of develop from there. Then once you get your first clients, then obviously you get paid. And so that finance now opens up other channels in your business. This is where you enter the scale phase. That new finance opens up the ability to hire people because you can afford to pay people. It opens up the ability to work on systems and operations because now you actually have systems and operations to install for clients. So many people get paralyzed by basically trying to do that before they even have a client, which makes absolutely no sense because you're building all these systems that will maybe be used to get a client. And then if you never get a client, you just wasted all your time. And people get so into these systems, it kind of paralyzes them from making a move. The first rule of business is you make money. Then you figure out how to deploy that money so that you can, first of all, help your clients the most. Secondly, maximize the profitability and therefore utility of your own business. And then obviously, if you want to go that route one day, you can sell it for a multiple. But I digress. We're not going to get into that. Agencies aren't the best at multiple selling. But anyways, at this point, you're going to shift gears. So the 50% time spent on prospecting, now you're going to spend 50% time on hiring. Why is that? Well, simply because at this point, you need people. An agency is really just a case of the Expedia business model where you basically find talented people, you charge a markup on their services, and you keep the margin in between. Like, that's it. So at this point, you need to really start building a competent team. And don't try and do this in reverse. Like, do not hire a team before you have clients, because the best of the best are not going to come work for you if you have no clients, because in turn that means that your agency is not the best in the world or trying to be the best, so you have no culture. They're also not going to work for free. And so if you kind of build a team based on the promise of one day I'll have clients and then you can come work for me, you just do not attract A1 players. And so I would highly avoid that. Plus, because you don't know your numbers, you don't know how much you can pay people, and you don't want to promise to pay a certain amount, then you get clients who pay you less than you thought, but you take them on because you're desperate. Then you still have to honor what you said, or better yet, break what you said. And then you kind of lose trust of your team, and it's just a bad way to start. So you don't want to hire first. You should never stop prospecting. As an agency owner, never ever stop. So still that's going to take 30%. And then now that you have clients and a team, you can start working on operations. And so that's really it. Like, it's not rocket science. 3 phases: fundamentals, launch, scale. And the main thing is, do not start building a team or systems before you have anything to sustain that team or sustain those systems. And do not let the kind of trauma or this like intended vision of one day building this team kind of give you all these extra tasks to do. Like, I literally spoke to someone the other day who, I can't even remember, but I think he basically started his agency 3 months ago, and he still had not done any outreach or any outbound because he was building the systems and the SOPs, and he was doing all of these things. Like, how in the world can you do that if you don't even know who you're going to be servicing, what they want, and how much they're paying you so that you can have like proper margins? Like, it doesn't make sense, and it just seems like an excuse to not do anything, right? Which is like one of the quickest ways to not make money. So now that you know that, now let's look at like what I've done now at my stage in the game is I really just have 3 goals every single day. Goal number 1 is get client results. Goal number 2 is hire great people. And goal number 3 is make content. That's it. And the reason for that is get client results. That's working on systems. It's improving SOPs. It's getting on client calls here and there, which I still do, just increases retention. It's hiring great people so that I can start doing some of the longer grandmaster chess moves versus, you know, in the day-to-day operations, and having a team that can fall on and pick up the weight when I can't be there. And then making great content, because this is the best way to attract the highest quality clients in the long term, right? Like if you're trying to sign a client for like a 20, 30K MRR retainer, it's gonna be very, very hard to do that in like a cold email, cold loom or something like that. You're really going to have to build up some form of audience, blog. It's a long-term play. So that's how I start my day. And I basically look at, of these three things, which one needs my attention the most? And I start my day and I allocate my time that way. So that's it, ladies and gents. I really hope that you found this valuable. And if you did, all that I ask is you hit the subscribe button. I will make separate videos on each stage, taking you through what it looks like and how to get through that. But for now, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.